excited about. You all remember that 9th of December 2021, we did PoSH Awards, and there were 25 winners. And I have been getting a lot of requests that what is that special sauce or secret sauce for all these winners? What have they done differently? So I thought might as well hear from the horse's mouth. So we have jury of that event, Dharani with us. We have two winners, Sukanya and Hanoz. I will just bring up the presentation and I will hand it over to Madhura first, who as a tradition will introduce ILA. Madhura?
Yes, Smita. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome for today's event. Smita has been doing a great job, and it's our pleasure to work with KelpHR for over a year now. I'll quickly introduce Indian Lawyers Association. We are an organization based all over India in terms of different chapters, and we are working to create a common voice of all the legal professionals in the country. So we do this by way of hosting different events, webinars, sessions, trainings. We have a couple of initiatives which work for the benefit of young lawyers and law students. We also did this legal aid activity, which especially picked up during the pandemic. And we are glad that it has been helpful to many. And we operate on the model of having local chapters. So we could bring in local flavors to our operations. We have about 75 chapters in the country currently. And we'll be very happy to invite all of you to join us in whichever city you are based in, and I'll send a mail to you tomorrow once the session is over, tonight or tomorrow morning. Handing over to Smita for the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhura. So a little bit about KelpHR. We started in 2013. We have been doing work in the space of prevention of sexual harassment, and in 2020, we thought of introducing awards. We thought what would inspire any organization to not just be compliant, but do more. So not restrict themselves only to preventing sexual harassment or prohibiting sexual harassment or redressing sexual harassment, but change the conversation, right? Creating respectful behaviors, creating sensitive workplaces. So what can we do? And that was a ting idea which went on. And of course, few well-wishers came with the thought process. We said, why not have our own awards where we encourage Indian organizations to feel inspired or aspire for that particular award. And that's why we started KelpHR Awards. We really wanted to do it in person, but you know what situation we are in. Nevertheless, our online awards function was also amazing. So we thought, let us get the winners and the jury to understand what was it all about, why was it so special, what have they done. So first of all, introducing the jury member here. He is not somebody whom you don't know. He has come to ILA earlier also. That is Dharani for y'all. With over 18 years of legal expertise across verticals at leadership levels. Dharani is currently a member of Pega Systems India leadership team, heads the legal and compliance function, and leads Pega's global corporate governance initiatives. Since 2013, he has been actively involved in implementation of PoSH and creating awareness about PoSH in Hyderabad on various platforms. In this time, he's also trained several IC members. He's also co-authored a book on professional ethics and morals, which is part of the first-year engineering curriculum in 325 engineering colleges in the state of Andhra Pradesh, right? The next eminent guest of ours is Sukanya Gopinath. She is from Titan Company, and she is with Titan Company since 2001. A microbiologist by qualification, designer by passion, and an ethics management professional by chance. A true Bangalorean, alumnus of Mount Carmel College, Bangalore, and a Titanian for most of her working life. For the first 15 years at Titan, she was part of visual merchandising team at Tanishq. She moved into, I'm just going to mute someone here. Yeah. She moved into current independent role as head ethics management in 2016. She manages business ethics portfolio, ethics and PoSH on sensitization programs, awareness and cascades, and of course, Sukanya is passionate about people and is a green sustainable practitioner. The third panel member is Hanoz Sukheshwalla. He is SPHR, GPHR, SHRM, SEP, and SPHR ILA. Okay. So Hanoz has a total of 18 years of work experience in HRM across technology, BFSI, insurance, education, healthcare, and the real estate industries. He has designed and implemented effective HR interventions that suit the needs of different activities as per operational requirements. He's proficient in employee relations, business partnering, and people strategy, talent acquisition, management, and development, HR operations, performance management, engagement activities as well. Okay, he has been associated with Uber in employee relations as employee relations head for India, South Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore. He is in his earlier career, he was with the Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC Technology, and Vicure High. He's also worked with few Fortune 20 organizations such as JP Morgan Chase and United Health Group. I hope I have made justice to all your introductions, all of you. Please pardon me if not. And I would invite each one of you to start with, first I'll come to the lady, Sukanya. I will stop sharing here so we can see her. Sukanya.
Hi, Smita.
Hi, Sukanya. For Tata as an organization, we've studied in college. Our MBA had a topic about Tata's ethics, about various initiatives they did in HR courses, right? And you come from that company, right? And getting an award, I don't think it was a brainer for us. So please tell us more about, I'm sure there is a lot of it gone into getting it. So what is it? What are those best practices that we should look forward or we should be inspired from Titan as an organization?
Thank you, Smita, and thank you, Kelp. Thank you to the jury for for this selection of the award, for Titan to be selected for this award. And I think the best part of this is the ongoing conversation, which keeps it in continuity, because I think that's the most important part of, finally, it is about best practice sharing, and we all learn as we go along. And Smita, you mentioned something about the special sauce. I think it's still tomato ketchup. It's just that we serve it in regular portions. I would like to talk about one aspect, which I think has held us in good stead, and that is on our communication program, right? Or our strategy of, I wouldn't even call it strategy, it is just the way we are. So at Titan, we all, the leadership has an open door policy, and most of us are, have a very easy way of communication. And even before, the PoSH law came by, the Tata Code of Conduct has different aspects that covers, on dignity and respect at the workplace, providing equal opportunities to employees, which are non-discriminatory on various grounds. Following through with the 2013 Act that came into being, I think what we have done is just kept the communication on. So there, especially in this, on this subject, I don't think there's anything that is too less, too much, or just enough, right? It is just about being consistently talking about this topic, not to scare away people. I think it's more from the point of reiterating expectations of the organization when it comes to maintaining a professionalism at the workplace. I think that has been our mainstay. And we have a dedicated team which looks into business ethics management. So there is two of us who do only this full time for a company, because we are also diverse in our ecosystem. So we have retail, we have manufacturing, and we have offices. So it is important that somebody is there to constantly have these conversations. We have our leadership, which is also pulled into these conversations. So when I say communication, it starts right down from our business plan. So there is a plan. We have a board level subcommittee which reviews the plans. And we have about 132 volunteers, employees across who are our regional or zonal ethics counselors, which I think is also similar for a lot of organizations. What has helped us, in communicating what we call, our program is called the Right Way at Titan, right? There is no other way. It is just the right way at Titan. And what has helped us is, really making it simple. So while we might not be talking about the policy guidelines so much in detail, there is one session, but every year we use theater as a medium to communicate. It is vernacular and it is customized for different ecosystems. And that is the part of the communication which is one-sided. We also have our local ethics counselors who do floor walks, chai pe charcha, leaders who also talk about this subject. So it is in continuum, and also not because it is the first thing I come into work thinking about, but it is something that I need to digest, and it has to become a way of life for every Titanian. And also we are expanding. We have newer partners, newer employees coming on board, and most of the time, you emulate. And the culture has to be permeating across, right? And another way that we have also found is, while communication is one way, we also want to hear back from the recipients, our employees and our stakeholders on, what have you understood? Which is the right behavior, and it has to be simplified. I mean, it is something that I understand, which is, which is related to a particular thing that I might have a doubt about, or what is relevant to me in my ecosystem. So we have launched a short film competition every year. We do this with our employees. We give them certain topics. There'll be two or three on ethic violations and 2 or 3 on PoSH, and they actually come back with a script. They make the film. And it's wonderful. So there's immense talent, amongst everybody, and everybody, I think there's a secret wish to become a filmmaker, and this somehow kind of helps them, and it helps us. So, when you see your own colleagues out there talking about this, it becomes that much more relatable. It becomes real, and it is not something that, raises heckles. We don't want to scare people off. We want to tell them that this is what is expected, and there is a way to go about it. There's a resolution process, and this is what we do, right? And so it also helps build trust in the community of ethics counselors and the department. So I think on the communication bit, it is, this is our mainstay. Short films, and of course we have the bits on quizzes that we conduct, and we also have something that we run as a reaffirmation program every year. So this is like a declaration, which I think, again, most companies do this across, right? Everybody does an e-learning module, and then you sign off and say this is a mandatory thing. So what we have done is we have given them scenario based. So it's not so much, again, to go down into the nitty-gritties of the policy, but if I give you a situation, what do you understand from it? So it could be just 3 or 4, but again, customized to each ecosystem. And we get the responses back, and it also helps with the mandatory target of getting every employee to sign on. And going forward on the communication bit, thanks to the pandemic, we have also innovated. We've learned to adapt. We have converted theater plays, because these theater plays, we used to have it in the main cities, in the metro cities, where we used to have it's always breakfast followed by the program, because we are a retail company. We can't shut down stores. So we used to have a gathering like about 1,000 people in Delhi, about 700, 800 people in Bombay. All our retail staff would be there, and they would enjoy these skits, about 5 or 6 of them in a matter of 1 hour. So the same thing has been converted into radio plays. So that helps us to keep this continuity in the times of the pandemic. Yeah. So I think that's my bit on communication, but if it's possible to play, the sample video that we have, which is made by our employees, it'll be good for, you all to understand what we're talking about when we say about the film. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, Sukanya, I'll take a minute to play the video. I'll just see if I can bring that up. That was a very interesting piece. Really wanted, and it is for the people, by the people. It becomes very, very engaging. As you rightly said, they see themselves. Okay, and it's a very different feeling altogether.
And I loved it when she said, Smita, I must say one thing that really caught my attention is, so there is nothing too much less, or, when you communicate, I mean, I think the focus of what she said is about communication. And it's very interesting, Sukanya, that you said there's nothing like too much,
Yeah.
Consistency and, communication are two things that are really, really standing out for me.
Thank you.
I'm going to try and play this for all our audiences too. I hope you all can see my screen. Yeah.
Thank you, Smita, for playing that. So I think this was one of our very, very earliest films. I think it was important because, the PoSH Act was out, things were drumming up. There was a lot of fear, right, amongst, and there's stereotyping. So it was important, as an organization to also tell them that there are certain things that we need to be sensitive about. It's not always, things don't go downhill with everybody. And also to have that and to build trust in the committee, because finally it is about ensuring that they know that there is going to be a neutral, unbiased approach if at all there is a concern that comes up. But more than anything else, I think all of these could be resolved if we are sensitive and we respect each other, respect boundaries that exist between employees, and we are professional at the workplace. So it's very sensitive portrayals like this of different dilemmas that have been actually brought forth by the employees themselves, which has helped us go a long way and also keep this conversation more like a dialogue going two ways. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think I will stop now, and maybe you can come back or let me know if there's anything else.
We will not let you go off so easy. But I will want to invite Hanoz. Hanoz, can you put your video on? Yeah, I can see you. Yes, awesome. Hanoz is here. Hanoz is from Uber. And we would want to hear from you, Hanoz, the best practice. I must share with you before we start. I think a couple of years back, of course, prior pandemic, Uber was the way of life. Traveling from Bombay from one place to another, I used to just hop into Uber. And one fine morning, in one of my such routine, I get into an Uber and I see a notice displayed. And I would want to share with you what that notice said. Okay, just give me 1 minute till I bring it up. And I was so pleasantly surprised. This was the notice. The notice said, this is a certificate of appreciation to the driver partners registered with Uber app for participating in gender sensitization program for women's safety organized by Uber and Manas Foundation. And the name of my driver was written there, has pledged that they will practice positive behaviors to make public transport safe for women and encourage others to do the same. Trust me, instantly I felt nice. I'm a Mumbai girl, okay? I've lived in the safe bubble for a really long time, okay? But this made me more confident about this travel. We were discussing with Hanoz that this is an amazing initiative. Keep up, because I know your relationship with your drivers is also not employee-employer. It's not principal employer and employee. It's different. So Hanoz, inviting you to share more insights into it.
Thank you, Smita. So first of all, I just want to thank KelpHR for, recognizing some of the work that we've done. Honestly, we were a little wary about whether, what we've done would classify to be recognized. So, we were pleasantly surprised, and we just thought, there were small incremental things that we did, but I guess small things finally add up. So, we're really happy to be here and to share some of the work that we do, in prevention of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. So to your point, Smita, obviously safety is very important for Uber, and one of our cultural norms actually says that we stand for safety. So I think that's why you will see a very consistent message, both in the work that our driver partners do as well as what we do for our employees. So I think what you just shared kind of is an extension of some of the work that we do, and shows a consistency in the way we would want to treat all of our customers, whether it's internal or external. Having said that, I did hear Sukanya, and while Sukanya and I come from very different industries, at the end of the day we deal with people, right? And so you will still see some themes running similar, even to what we have done, in kind of creating awareness. Now, in Uber, everything that we do, the employee experience is at the heart of what we do. So, we looked at the prevention of sexual harassment policy that we have. We looked at it from the lens of that particular perspective, that what is the employee experience for someone who's actually filing a complaint, for someone who's actually at the receiving end. And we thought that there were some things that we could do differently, especially at the outset of the pandemic. So the first thing that we decided to do was that the conventional definition of a workplace is not relevant anymore, right? All of us are on video calls. So, the first thing that we did is to define that, any virtual interaction, formal virtual interaction would also be under the definition of a workplace or an extended workplace. The other thing that we obviously decided to do was to think about how, we could really engage with our employees in this particular virtual background. And, I think both Sukanya and Aparna spoke about the fact that, communication, right? There's never enough or never excessive communication. And I think that's the one thing that even we, the theme of what we've done throughout is always to try and communicate in different ways, right? And I'll come to that in just a bit, but I also wanted to talk about some of the smaller things that we did to kind of make the experience a little better. I think the first thing we understand is that, it's a very formal process, the process of actually filing a complaint or a sexual harassment complaint. And we just wanted to make that process as streamlined as possible. And turn it around as quickly as we could, just in some of the limitations that we had. So the first thing we did is we endeavored as an organization, as an internal committee, to try and close investigations faster than what is mandated by law. And that's a commitment we all made to ourselves. It also aligned with our internal process to turn around grievances and complaints. So I think we kind of aim to close it much faster. And we said, hey, the law says 90 days, can we do this faster? And, we decided that we will give ourselves 45 days instead, to close out concerns. Because a lot of times, if an issue is not addressed, quickly enough, it kind of loses its essence, or, sometimes enough time has passed and, damage is already done. So I think that's one thing that we decided to, look at differently. Apart from that, we used a lot of themes to, drive engagement during the pandemic. So, social media is so prevalent. So, we decided to use a lot of hashtags to actually drive engagement, because a big percentage of our population are millennials, Gen Z employees, and to engage them is a challenge, right? It's a different challenge. So, we obviously decided to, kind of use all of the social media at our disposal, which obviously meant, to what Sukanya said earlier, using visual medium, right? So be it, role plays, be it case studies, talking about scenarios, talking about posters, right? Talking about quizzes, right? And obviously, rewarding right behavior. So, we kind of used a combination of all of this, to continue to build engagement. And I think the one thing we realized is that we will do this proactively, we will not do this reactively. So, we kept using all of this to build engagement. Incidentally, role playing is a big hit. I think that also got reflected again in Sukanya's video, right? And we kind of use the same thing, both in the times when we were in office, we used theater as a big mode of engaging employees. So on the ground, we engaged with hundreds of our employees, through the medium of theater to build awareness on sexual harassment, and we used the same methodology even when we went online, to try and talk about it, right? So some of the themes that we used were, obviously, stand up and speak up, again, talking about, reporting sexual harassment, know the no, which is essentially, knowing what to do and what not to do, and obviously, we also drove one of our other cultural norms, which is doing the right thing. And again, we drove an awareness program on doing the right thing, both in terms of behavior as well as in terms of also reporting, right, sexual harassment. So it's not just talking about something when it happens to you, but it also is talking about something when you see it happening to someone else, speaking up about it. So I think those were some of the things that we encouraged in terms of, the right kind of behavior. We obviously, try to be as compliant as we can, right? So in everything that we do, that kind of is underlying or overarching, all of our commitments towards prevention of sexual harassment. But more importantly, we've had a lot of partnership, right? So our leadership is super committed. We have an extremely committed internal committee who we engage with a lot. We bounce ideas off them. We also consciously work at a hand's length distance from them. So, we want to give them the tools and we want to give them the authority to, to drive awareness on sexual harassment or prevention of sexual harassment. So a lot of times when you have a people team in an organization that is, heavily influencing the internal committee tends to defer to them. Our idea is always to just give them the tools and, make them feel that they can drive this, and that's the mandate given to them by law. So that's another thing that we've always tried to do, not to kind of force feed anything, but just to give them the tools and the information to make the right decision. So I think that's another thing that we've always done. As I said before, we do have a policy against retaliation. So we leverage a lot of that, to encourage people to speak up, because at the end of the day, if people don't talk about it, you'll never know if there's a problem, right? So that's another thing that, we always speak about, always talk about. Our policies are generally gender neutral. So, while the law is unfortunately a little behind on this, we will obviously consider sexual harassment to be sexual harassment irrespective of the gender, right? And in fact, we have a much more quicker way of addressing concerns that are not necessarily raised by female employees. So for us, gender is irrelevant as far as sexual harassment is concerned, and it's something that we actually believe in, and we actually strive to ensure that people feel that this is not something that only a particular class of employees can report or can talk about. So these are some of the things that Uber does, and I'm super happy to be here. I'm also quite excited to see what our audience has to say, and happy to answer any questions that they might have. And with that, I am going to hand this back to Smita. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Aparna, you want to say something?
Yeah, I couldn't resist talking. Hanoz, it's the faster resolution bit. It's like, that's a game changer for me, because I'm sure Smita also will agree, because as external members, we face a challenge, especially if the respondent is of somebody of influence or somebody with a slightly higher position. What happens is we want to finish the inquiry faster because of the impact it can have on the ecosystem, on the company, on the teams. And it's, it's difficult to keep somebody at that level, hanging. At the same time, it affects everybody around. So we tend to, there are times when we've had marathon sessions, I remember a case where we finished an inquiry in 5 days, marathon session, morning 9 to 5, the IC sat together and we finished it because it was somebody at a director level. So it's amazing that you thought about it, and it is definitely a best practice that all of us, should consider. It's not, sometimes it may not be possible, there could be constraints given the situation right now, but at least for if senior people are involved, the faster resolution bit really helps. So that's something that really stood out for me. Yeah.
In fact, if I can just step in, and Hanoz, I think after our initial pre-panel discussion, that is the biggest takeaway for me. In fact, we incidentally had a case that was registered with us today, and that's the first thing I've told the committee, that we need to target, whatever, less than 90 days, definitely. And, Uber is doing it in 45 days. I think that should be our target. And if we can do it earlier than that, nothing like that. But yeah, I think it's the right intention, just to put everybody out of misery, right? Whatever the law does provide us with. But thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, it's like the fast forward codes, right? Yeah. So yes, it is something that strikes Hanoz, and I think that's something very unique, which I had not heard earlier from. We have around 600 plus clients, okay, and I have not heard anybody doing that. So it's quite a unique one. Also, what really excites me is, and I must tell you, the leadership team reaching out to the ground level people. Okay, what I realized, and I also had a case today, and this person was suffering from so many months, but she was suppressed, saying that she cannot reach out to anybody senior. So how do we build that culture of open door? I think Sukanya also spoke about it, that anybody till the ground level can think that they can walk to a CMD or a managing director and share. Okay, how do we empower our every team member is going to be something that we will look forward for. Yeah.
Sure. And just to kind of add on that, Smita, we actually have multiple methods that we encourage employees to report these matters through. So we just want them to feel comfortable in whatever mode they want to come to us with. And we do not want to pigeonhole them. So be it virtually, be it speaking to an HR person, speaking to me. We've always encouraged people to report this in multiple ways, in whatever way is comfortable, because the idea is that we need to act. The idea is not that you need to submit something in triplicate. We'll get that done eventually, but the idea is for it to come to our notice or to our attention.
That is also very nice that you just said, that it is important for us to act. Okay. What I realized in today's case is that she reached out to people who thought she could, but those people did not act, right? And that was really, really sad. And today when we were opening up, we said, this is something that, with that, Hanoz, I know I have a short duration. There's so much of bubbling. Yeah, I would want to invite Dharani here. He was our esteemed jury member and he got viewed to all the best practices. So he's going to speak about few that stuck with him. Dharani, will you put your video on? And
my video is on.
Yeah. Now I can see, yes.
Yes. Hi, Smita. Thank you. Thank you, Sukanya and Hanoz. I think it was wonderful to look at the number of applications we received, and everybody was so interested to go through the PoSH compliance thing. So one thing that we, as the jury members, when we were having the discussion, the first thing that was raised was, now everybody is PoSH compliant. PoSH Act is the same for everybody. How are we going to decide who's better? Right? That's the first question that you get it. And some of them had suggestions, right? We can't even meet them. We can't visit the offices. How do we get a sense of things? And there, I think KelpHR has done a fabulous job of giving a lot of questions. You won't believe it. For each company, we at least took 45 minutes, half an hour to 45 minutes for each company, just to go through all the information that was collected. Kudos to both KelpHR and also to the companies for having given so much information to go through, right? Like how many cases were dealt with, what are the different policy structures, what are the different reporting structures, how many people do you have in senior management, how many people do you have in, women do you have in the senior management, how many of them in the board. So the questions itself, as some of you must know about them, all these made the process easier on one side. There are some criteria we can look at, but also complicated and difficult for us because we have to look at so many things. And then I remember making my own Excel sheet and, putting some points there. And what we as a jury were looking at was something which stood out. We don't want companies who do it because they're being forced to do it by the government. We did get some thoughts of that kind when we were looking at things. Yes, check. PoSH policy, check, done. IC committee, check, done. Investigations within 90 days, done. So we were not looking at somebody who were just compliant, as most of the applicants were, but somebody who went above and beyond, not just because they had to get an award from KelpHR. No, that was not the idea, but to ensure that they were doing the right thing. I think, Hanoz's background and Sukanya's opening statement of doing the right thing is the mood of the discussion today. Even at PEGA, where I work, the one thing that Alan, our CEO, always mentions is, we do it not because the companies or, some policy or some act is asking us to do. We do it, but because it's the way of life. It's the PEGA way of life. And I see that reverberating in other companies as well. They do it because they don't want a hostile-free, hostile work environment. They want a completely happy space where people can come in, share their ideas, discuss, grow, rather than bother about something so, difficult to manage and get it complicated. A couple of things that really struck were obviously, using theater and culture as a medium to change the entire way that people interact with each other. You know, the approach changes. I'll give you an example. Some of the places where I had gone for trainings and all, as soon as the training is over, some of the employees, when the women were walking out and of the conference room, they were like trying to create a pathway. Move, otherwise the posh consultant will call. I'm like, this is exactly what we don't want. I called them back into the conference room and said, guys, this is exactly what we don't want happening. And I also happen to have seen where Uber works in Hyderabad. I was in the same building for a couple of years, and I noticed the difference from the initial stage and afterwards. And now I understand why the change happened. There is somebody like Hanoz who's actually working on policies and ensuring that there is some messaging happening. They have a very young crowd, absolutely young crowd, just out of college, bubbling with enthusiasm and energy. You tell them, okay, probably you should make a, probably get into an elevator a little bit slowly. Nobody's going to listen to you. The message should be sent across and communicated, but not directly. I think that is what we were looking at. And how do you communicate? Communicating is not about telling or ordering people. None of the, not this generation, not the Gen X, Gen Y, and people behind, none of them are going to take it. You need to come up with innovative and creative ways, just like the modern schools are doing, right? In our generation, you write it on the board. We used to note it down in our books. You do that. My son and his generation, they're not going to sit in the classroom for more than 15 minutes. They have become innovative. I think the companies and the corporate departments, corporate governance departments should also slightly modify their way of communication. I think that is what we were looking at. And also the way you communicate, even if it is print, you're using print as a medium, right? Even then the way you do it. I think one of the things which Uber did was a poster where they, have the do's and don'ts of virtual work. It's very important to set across and, send these things across to employees so that they understand, okay, this is something I can do. This is something I shouldn't be doing. And it's very easy to understand, right? A picture speaks 100 words. I would go on to add and say a moving picture or a motion picture speaks 1,000 sentences, right? And that's what Sukanya's short videos have shown us. And there are a lot more of them. And she's been very kind enough to share. I think we should share them across social media. These things should go viral. And the whole idea of doing these awards, correct me if I'm wrong, Smita, at the end, was not to just see who are the top, but to ensure that, motivate the others, that getting an award is not the final, it's the beginning. Now there's more responsibility. It's more about seeing best practices, learning best practices, and how can we communicate it, right? It shouldn't be left just amongst the posh consultants or people who are trainers, who are interested, the HR professions. No, it should go out of the way and it should reach the software engineers. It should reach the technical head, CTO, the CISO. All these people should understand what this is and they should start talking about why the workplace should be better. And there are studies which have shown that a better workplace without harassment has more productivity. And I've used this a lot in my board meetings and, told that to a lot of presidents and chairmen who have met. And the messaging, if it comes from top down, it is more effective, period. We should understand that. And it is irrespective of geography, not just in India. If the CEO says even a word about the training which is happening on anti-sexual harassment or about harassment-free work environment or non-retaliation, the impact is bigger and harder. I think that is something which we can inculcate. And most of the organizations which stood in the top ranking have, all of the things that I've mentioned right now. And the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, very, very small, minor things which have given the edge. And we don't even remember whom we've rated high and low. The rating was so neutral and so different that it was possible because of all the, wonderful things that the technology team at KelpHR had done. Having said that, the last point that I would like to bring before handing over back to Smita is, let us use technology as a medium to spread the evils of technology, right? There is a lot happening on the social media as, the hashtags and the YouTube videos, everything is good, but let us use it to spread the awareness that, even in the virtual world, complaints do happen. Somebody was asking me, oh, Dhani yaar, ye because of this virtual working, you must not have any IC complaints in companies at all. I'm saying it's doubled up. In some places, it's increased even more. And then how does it happen? So people have nothing to do but sit in front of a computer, right? And human brain is as it is, it just wavers around, right? They go across the geographies and come back, think so many things, and you have a keyboard in front of you. You type something and you don't even realize that you've communicated something across to something. So please be aware of all these things. Try to aspire to be a better place to work, not just from a sexual harassment perspective, from a gender inclusivity perspective. And it's absolutely not just about women, though I still believe the act was made in such a way because 70 to 80% of India is not corporate world, right? There it's more about the women still, the manufacturing sector, the some of the retail industry, some of the education sector, where it's not actually as black and white as it is in the corporate sector. So maybe it's still valid, the act, but probably some changes can be brought in by the corporate world and then extended across. So thank you, Smita. Look forward to the remaining part.
Absolutely. Thank you. So many things you said, Dharani. Yes, this is not only to identify 25 best workplaces, but it is to aspire whole of India to be the best workplace. Absolutely bang on. Many points that you said really very close to my heart. I would take a pause and let Aparna speak because she has gathered few inputs from the best workplaces. We just had 2 of them come here, but there are 23 more and I want to bring them. I don't know which, where, how we'll get them all. But I asked Aparna to summarize at least 1 or 2 of them, which you want to share.
Yeah. So thank you, Smita. So just before I go into that, quickly wanted to say, just add to a point that Dharani just made. So it was a specific focus that the team, the awards team this time had, that we will take help of technology. Amulya is here in the call. She was the project lead, and we chose an international platform, international judging platform. KelpHR's management was, understanding enough to kind of go ahead and let us, extend the budget, if I can say, Smita. So we went in for that because we specifically wanted to have that unbiased thing where there was absolutely no human intervention anywhere till it reached the judges. The collection was collection, and the how we ranked, everything was completely handed over to technology. So that's one thing Dharani wanted to point out. And just adding a point to one of the best practice that I wanted to add, and it is kind of corroborates to what Hanoz was saying, various ways to reach out. Like Hanoz, you said, it is not just one way, but you always, finally, it has to reach the correct person and it has to be acted upon. So the various ways in which you reach. One very interesting practice I came across is that there was something called lunch buddies in one, I came across. So here, this company, what they've done is that they open, there's a particular kind of event or, program they call lunch buddy. So anyone can ask for lunch can ask to join anybody for lunch. They can block that person's calendar. It could be the CEO, it could be the MD, it could be the ethics officer, it could be anybody. No questions asked. Nobody else gets to know. If I want to have lunch with Sukanya, I just block her calendar and go sit there. It is specifically to discuss harassment issues. Anything that they're feeling specifically, if there are issues around being harassed, could be workplace sexual harassment, anything that they are not able to bring it up. So that's something that I have found unique. And I also saw a trend. I was also involved in the last year, the previous KelpHR PoSH Awards, and I see a very strong trend towards rebuilding a respectful behavior at work. Finally, if you have a respectful behavior, if it is an inclusive workplace, it also becomes, safe. If you treat the other person like how you want to be treated, then automatically, it also becomes safe, right? So I'm seeing a very strong trend there. Another best practice that I wanted to share here really stood out because, like, again, quoting Hanoz, it's like incremental changes because all of us are following the law. But where can we make that difference? So that's where, all of you have put in those special thoughts, that extra thought that gone inside. So here, this is like specifically focused on the ecosystem. If for example, if there is a rumor that is coming up, if there is a rumor that is going around, so then what happens is the IC and HR in collaboration, they pick that particular team without talking about anything. That particular team is sensitized. Okay, and if there is a senior manager, for example, who has been who has is named as in a complaint, then irrespective of what happens to the complaint, all people at that level, all senior managers are picked, or they go through a sensitization training. So it's like they're actually addressing the ecosystem in pockets specific to the unique to the situation. This I found to be very unique. And addressing the ecosystem, yes. So gamification is another thing that I see that they're catching up. I saw it being mentioned multiple times in the top in the winners, and I also saw female helplines, and it is being handed over to external parties to be maintained, because again, just like why you have an external member, this external helpline also probably the perception, right? It's about perception. So it's perceived to be unbiased and they don't have the fear, so they come up and talk. And very interesting, but kind of made me smile, is that one of the entrants had said, every time after an awareness session happens, they get a complaint. So it's like, so that gives rise to a couple of questions for me to this panel, but I'll wait for Smita to open up for questions. Thank you, Smita.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, if there are any questions by the by the listeners, by participants, please you can either put it on chat or you can ask. I can read one observation by Sundarajan, who says that while faster closure of cases is good, some judgment on giving reasonable time if asked for to produce evidence is a need for fulfilling the principles of natural justice. I see Amulya very beautifully explaining to him. Anybody from the panel would want to add anything here?
Yeah, I'm actually happy to add. Sorry, because this is something we thought of as well, right? And the idea is obviously to not in any way compromise the process, right? It's just to try and be as efficient as we can, to try and reach out as quickly as we can, because everyone wants a solution, right? Especially the person who's at the receiving end, and I would even say the complainant, right? They want a resolution, they want closure. So the idea is not to violate the principles of natural justice. Everyone is given an opportunity to be heard. Everyone is given an opportunity to represent themselves. Enough time is given or notice is given before they are spoken with or met with. The idea is to kind of make sure that this is done in a more efficient way. All of the so-called procedural work that we can help facilitate, we assist the IC on, to try and make this as efficient as possible. But absolutely, despite our best intentions, sometimes, things don't necessarily work out the way you want them to, right? So for example, the absence of, witnesses, somebody is unwell, COVID, right, is a big issue right now. So despite our best intentions, sometimes we may not achieve that, but we strive to do it, as much as we can.
All right, thank you so much. Anybody else has any questions, or we are like overwhelmed with the best practices, and we have.
I have a question, Smita. I have a question for the panel. So for the IC, so I was saying, one of the winners had mentioned that they get a complaint right after the awareness session. So somewhere it brings to me the question as to how do we make the IC, in your view, in your how you have been implementing, how do you make the IC more, credible and trustworthy, that people are willing to come walk up and talk to you? What are the things that you do?
Balaji wants to Okay, I try.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, Aparna. What I have seen and what has generally worked is you need to have members in the IC who are truly neutral and who are mature enough to understand confidentiality. Now, there will always be members in the IC who will go back and speak to their managers, right? That is a problem that should be avoided. And some ways of doing it is to have the IC members sign an individual NDA specific to being a part of PoSH, in addition to their whatever employee documentation they have, you know, just as a deterrent and make them understand the importance of keeping things confidential. And yes, they might have to go back to a legal department or to an HR department for some queries on policy or other related items like code of conduct and stuff. But they can always do it by not giving out the names. You know, I do receive some complaints and they say, okay, there is A, there is B. This is a situation. How do we handle it? You know, is there anything on the code of conduct that you want to get involved in? You know, sometimes there is not just a PoSH case, but there might be just something which is a code of conduct violation as well, and they come together. So in such cases, it's very important not to reveal the names of the people while the investigation is going on, especially. So that's one.
Thanks, Ddharan. If I may just add, you know, one of the things that what we have found useful here, you know, again, when you're saying credibility of the IC members, so when we onboard somebody for the first, while you know, stipulated time to be as part of the committee is 3 years, sometimes, you know, it's also about familiarity. You need to finally be able to, you know, immerse yourself in the subject, right? And 3 years sometimes is too short a time. So we do have people who continue, and so the junior members are largely pushed, you know, are encouraged to conduct awareness programs, right? And then when we see that they are ready, they're fairly well versed with the policy, with the process, they're able to clarify doubts, you know, from their own ecosystems that come up. Then we put them on as shadow members as part of an inquiry, because finally, you know, inquiry is only through experience. I mean, you're able to do an inquiry when you know what to ask, how to ask, because all of that happens in a classroom is not real. So it's important that they are part of an inquiry to understand, you know, what exactly happens, you know, how you, even body language, right? How do you appear to the person sitting across the table? So that is also something that we've done. So we get newer members, a new member and an old member to sit together, because then that's like a training that happens, you know, on the go, and that has definitely helped us, you know, in building credibility. And of course, you know, like Dharani mentioned, there is an NDA. They do sign, you know, the NDA for us, and we also have, since we are an independent department, you know, a lot of the groundwork that needs to be done is coordinated by my colleague, you know, so that, you know, people's identities are kept, and even even the IC members, you know, people who are involved in that inquiry don't need to really. So that's a, you know, slight luxury that we have, because we have an independent department. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Anybody else has any question? I think Malini has raised her hand. Malini, you want to say something?
Hi, Malini. I just have a question. So, with respect to an inquiry, along with the timelines, would the conciliation report also be the same timeline as for the inquiry report to the employer?
The voice was not totally audible. I heard something about conciliation report and inquiry report.
I think, let me try and I think what I understood from her question, what she's trying to say is timelines, inquiry report and the conciliation should take similar timelines. I think that was her question. Malini, please tell me, your voice was breaking up. So that's a question.
Because if you look at it explicitly, it's not mentioned in the Act. If the conciliation also has to be done when the inquiry report has to be submitted within 10 days. Like inquiries, explicitly stated in the Act. So when the Act is silent, how do you perceive it?
So when the Act is silent, we generally look at the cases that have come up, the precedents that have been laid down, and follow it. Generally, an inquiry report includes the conciliation report, you know, because you have to close the case in toto. That's the whole motto. The ultimate aim and the spirit of the act is what also we need to consider is, why do we have this investigation done? To see that justice is done. That happens when the entire investigation and the process is completed. You don't leave any loose ends at all. That is when it is said to be complete. And the one thing that applies to investigations in with respect to PoSH is, there is no black and white answer for every question. Right? Whatever I've answered is based on whatever facts I have. Slight fact changes and the entire scenario changes.
Yeah, I also believe that as there is no mention of any number of days it could take to conciliation, 90 days is the maximum time. But as the spirit of the act, as Dharani, you rightly mentioned, conciliation should take much shorter time. Okay, and this is something that we should be mindful of. Sundarajan is saying conciliation is at preliminary.
Definitely. Conciliation is only a preferred option. Definitely not the only option. Sometimes some organizations are actually discouraging conciliation. Because why should there be a settlement, right? There are different thoughts on it, different thought process. I was not party to this discussion, but I've heard some eminent women rights activists and people who've actually been influential in getting this PoSH Act talk about the fact that why should there be a compulsory conciliation? There's nothing like that. You're absolutely right. Only one way of dealing with things.
Sorry, just one thing that Sundarajan has mentioned, conciliation is not mandatory, but preferred option by IC. I think you mean preferred option by the complainant, because the option of going for conciliation or the inquiry is the prerogative of the complainant. Yeah, yes. It's not for the IC to. IC only advises, I guess, and gives you the information that is required. But yeah,
you're absolutely right.
In fact, I would, I don't know if Danny, if you would agree, I would look at conciliation in a situation like in a sexual harassment case only if the respondent has accepted and is willing to apologize. Otherwise, it is, then that is where all the activists are saying whatever you're saying actually comes into picture. It is not even correct. Doesn't even sound ethical to me if you kind of do out of court kind of settlement. If the respondent has accepted he or she, whoever, if they accepted the guilt and was willing to apologize, then it becomes the complainant's choice to kind of go for a conciliation. What would you what would you say for that?
I agree. In fact, in various forums, I've named conciliation as corporate panchayat. So I am not for it. I am not for it at all. I've received a lot of flack for it, but I don't believe that conciliation should be definitely. In some cases, yet it helps, but the influence of resolving cases through conciliation is definitely reducing is on the decline.
Let me tell you a softer thing about conciliation. Women, considering the way they think, I get a lot of complaints from women saying that I'll give it to you in writing only if you ensure that that person won't be terminated from the services, or you won't take any drastic action against that person. Only then I'll give it to you in writing. It's like a bargain.
No. So several times I use it in my trainings as well. One of the reasons why we don't have a lot of complaints as well is because they come with a precondition. They say he's my colleague, I know him from so many days, I know their family, nothing should happen to them, only then we'll give out the interest. Then there is a law. You cannot decide on what will happen after something bad happens. You might want the best for the opposite person, but the ball is already set in motion. You cannot stop it.
I just have something, I also would like to clarify. We've had a case where it was one of the first for us. We had one complainant, two respondents. Okay, and one of the respondents, the complainant decided to conciliate because it was a minor offense. If you go through whatever the kind of offenses were. The other one, the second respondent was major offense, but she still decides to conciliate. Now, for whatever reasons, there was fear, there was stress, there was family pressure, all of those things. I don't want to appear for an inquiry. So clearly you can't go through the inquiry mode. But what the IC, recommended is when we know that there is, a list of these offenses which are major, and to a certain extent, the person, the respondent had agreed. That's how the conciliation, because she said, I'd like him to accept and just apologize and get out of my face. But for an organization to know, especially because the person was of a managerial level, that there could be something like this. So maybe, I don't know, you can also let us know what you would think. Would there be a provision, or maybe there's a provision in the code of conduct which will allow the organization to pursue this as misconduct at the workplace? Would that also be something that could be pursued? Is something that I'd like to ask.
Definitely. They can pursue it under the code of conduct violation, Sukanya. And what one should do ideally is, when the training for PoSH is happening, the employees, whoever are sitting there, should have already gone through the code of conduct training. And also a reference should be made to the code of conduct and the ways in which you can reach out. Like Hanoz was mentioning, it's not just about IC. It should all be included in the same way. People can reach out in different ways, and there are different ways of treating different problems as well. And there are a lot of problems with the committee receives generally, I see, which are only harassment complaints. There is nothing sexual about it. There are no PoSH related incidents about it. But they should definitely, be encouraged to take it through the code of conduct.
Just adding to what Ddharinikota mentioned, many cases do not fall in the jurisdiction of the PoSH law, right? Because of X, Y, Z. I mean, there are so many reasons. So all these, we actually hand it over to HR to run it under code of conduct. Because we feel if it is an offense, it needs to be tried. The proceeding needs to be conducted. So let's let it not slip under the and in between the crack, and be hanging there.
Yeah, I think what Smita mentioned is absolutely right. I think please don't overdo it. I've seen that sometimes you become the IC especially becomes very, very visible, and they've solved a couple of cases and they start believing that they can do everything. I think that is where we should understand what Spider-Man told us, right? With great power comes great responsibility. We should curtail that ambition of making everything right. You are not meant to do it. You see something wrong, report it to the ethics council or the people organization or the HR department, and they'll handle it. Definitely report it, but don't take it upon yourself to handle it. It might not be the right way to do it.
All right, I think it's exactly 1 hour plus 10 minutes. Oh, sorry, I just looked at it. Okay, so I think we have come to the end of an amazing session. I learned a lot, and I hope our audiences also learned a lot. Sukanya, Hanoz, Ddharinikota, thank you so much. You've been lovely panel members. Aparna has put her tadka to make this entire thing extremely engaging. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening ahead.
Thank you so much. More power to Kelp. Keep throwing this at us, and I'm sure we'll all be there to learn more. And it's more about, just spreading the influence, spreading the good word. Finally, it's about the extended communities around us that we want to be a great workplace. Thank you so much for inviting us on the panel.
Thank you for having us.
Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.